always thought it's hard to make new friends, but making enemies, I guess that's easy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our video review of Transistor. I'm Hollander Cooper, and I've beaten the game.
And I'm Ryan Teljanik, and I've only played the first little bit of it. John, tell me, what is Transistor?
Transistor is a game by people who made Bastion, Supergiant Games, and it's a super stylish, top-down kind of hack-and-slash game with a big emphasis on it's a crazy art style you really haven't seen before, and some interesting gameplay.
Okay, cool. So I've been actually pretty excited for this game for quite a while. Can you talk a little bit about first kind of like what's going on in the game?
Yeah, so you play Red, who is a singer who has lost her voice. It was taken from her by an evil sort of group of mysterious people. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's in the beginning. I was like, oh, they're like a mafia or a cult or something. But it's just a group of people that, you get a sword that was used to kill someone. It's like a big, cool-looking sword, and it's called the Transistor. And the Transistor is a talking sword.
Hey, Red. We're not going to get away with this.
It talks to you and kind of narrates what you're doing and discusses it. Again, sort of like the narrator in Bastion. And so you need to go around fighting the Process, which is AI kind of robots. They all kind of look like the female love interest in WALL-E.
Oh, yeah.
Like kind of that floating kind of thing. And you have to take them down and try to figure out what is going on and why the city is kind of falling apart.
So speaking of taking down the Process, how's the combat work, and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, the combat, I was actually really surprised by how good the combat was and sort of the mechanics behind it, because you pick up functions, which is just the game's abilities or skills as you play, and there's like 14 of them, and you get them at a pretty frequent pace, and you can equip 4 of them at a time. And there'll be ones that are just like a smash attack that kind of does like a little AoE, or one that knocks enemies into the air, or one that's a ranged one, or one that's ranged and bounces. But the cool thing is you can use any ability you get as either just an active ability, an upgrade for any active ability, or a passive, and they all sort of stay true to what they are. So if one is called like bounce, if you use it, it just shows out a projectile that bounces. If you put it on a different projectile attack, it might cause that to bounce maybe 1 or 2 times. Or if you put it as a passive, it could give you like a chance to have that happen.
So there's a lot of mixing and matching of the abilities.
It's
you can choose your loadout,
customization.
And you can choose how to upgrade certain ones. Very cool.
Yeah, and then that makes the combat really engaging, because the combat, at face value, it kind of looks like, oh, it's a top-down kind of hack and slash, but you're going to spend very little of the time just running around and attacking, because you can initiate a turn, which freezes time, and it's a lot like Fallout's VATS, where you kind of have a timeline of how many things you can do, and that includes like running around the battlefield and attacking. But because so much of the combat is movement-based, and every attack almost will either knock somebody away or pull them towards you or move you forward, you'll do things like I had an ability called Get, which I put on my bouncing thing, and it caused people to get pulled towards me. And then what I would do is I'd use it to get them pulled towards me, run around behind where I think they would land, because it doesn't show you exactly where everything's going to move, and then use like a big AoE to do a bunch of damage to all of them.
Oh, that's cool.
You just watch it play out instantly, and they don't have time to react, and then you kind of run around it. It's really, really good. I haven't played any games that have had kind of action combat like that, and it makes it so every time you enter a combat, you actually have to think about it.
And real quick, how about difficulty-wise? Did you find it like kind of nicely tuned, or?
It was pretty good. One of the things it does really cool is, again, like Bastion, it's a lot. It actually is. It was really confusing at first. I know we were both playing it. I didn't fully understand what was going on, but you get these things that you can actually equip that make the game harder, but give you bonus experience. And as I went on, you're able to kind of tune how difficult you want the game to be.
Oh, very cool.
So because of that, I'm like, you know what? This isn't that difficult. I'd like a 2% increase in my damage or in my experience, but I will take instead, when enemies die, they drop like a core, and if you don't collect it in a certain amount of time, it becomes another enemy, but they'll drop 2 of them instead. Like, I'll take that. And if you do die in combat, you actually just lose one of your active abilities for a little while, which is obviously pretty punishing, but it lets you kind of have a few shots at finishing a group of enemies.
Yeah, sure. So the combat's awesome, but how about like the story?
The story,
because I know I'm only a couple hours in, and so far I'm very confused.
Yeah, it doesn't get much clearer. Even at the end, when I'm like, I can probably sit down and tell you everything that happened, I still am like, and I think this is what this is, and I think this is who this is, and then the end might mean this. It's really, it kind of was a letdown. I mean, the storytelling is okay in that you have the Transistor talking to you. It's the same guy who voiced Rux in Bastion. He has a really cool voice. He's a good voice actor. It's really cool to kind of be walking around and having him give you the description of this world, because it's such a technologically advanced future that at times right away, and this isn't a spoiler, you and I were like, are you in a computer or something? Like, because it's so advanced into the future, like you can go to a terminal and log in and vote on the weather. But the actual act of, like, once you know what's going on, it's like, oh, that's cool, but it's told in a really confusing way.
Right.
And for me personally, the further I got in the game, I was constantly waiting for something to happen in the story to make it more than what it was.
I see.
Like, I'm constantly
like some
waiting.
kind of big reveal or something.
Or even some kind of big reveal or some kind of big new mechanic to the story, but it really never comes. Like, there are some small things, but I felt like I was just waiting for or like a level that was like super, super good. It felt like everything, and sort of the world itself of Cloud Bank, it was really cool, but it never really became anything. It never felt like a living area. I mean, I understand that it's empty because there's robots killing everything, but it never felt like it ever was a place that was an actual lived in. It just feels like a bunch of combat arenas connected by really, really stylish hallways.
Fair enough. So Supergiant's last game, as we'd mentioned already, Bastion, had a pretty big emphasis on music. Well, how was that in Transistor?
I wouldn't say it's as good. I didn't like when I finished Bastion, my first thought was like, oh my god, I need to get the soundtrack. This game does have a good soundtrack. The title song, which is available online.
I do love that song. I have to say,
super good, and there are other songs that are really good. I mean, I did end this saying like, "Wow, I need to get the soundtrack." So it's better than a majority of games you're going to play. And it has, when you're actually in the process of fighting, it has a really cool beat, and there is more of an emphasis on music. Having Red, or the character of Red, was a singer, and you can hold down the left bumper, and she just hums. She's going, it's charming, and the music definitely sells it.
Great. So overall, what'd you think of the game, and what'd you end up scoring it?
I really liked the gameplay mechanics, and the world looks really cool, and the music is really cool. I'd say that all of the things kind of, it almost feels like they're rubbing against each other too much, because you'll have the music surging and Transistor talking to you while you're trying to read something, and there's somebody else saying something, and all of these things happen at once, and I almost felt like I was like staring at like an Excel sheet. There's just so much information overload that it kind of just washed over me at times. But the visual style is really strong, and the combat and the super customizable gameplay is good enough that I definitely ended up liking it a lot in the end.
And what'd you score it?
I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5.
Great. So you can check out the written review on GamesRadar.com, and of course we have plenty more reviews on the website. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you there.
To play.